Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Allison Sports Podcast series. This is a quick take, and it is a quick take on earthquake level, seismic level, Ricketts scale level news in the world of Major League Baseball. I'm a Cubs fan. You're a Brewers fan. Armin, you want to break down the news?
Yeah, so unfortunately for myself and other Brewers fans, we just lost our manager to your team, the Cubs, who decided to make Craig Counsell the highest paid manager in Major League Baseball, just signed a 5-year, $40 million deal. I mean,
Huge.
as you mentioned, next level stuff. I mean, what does this mean for the collective fan bases and just Major League Baseball?
Yeah, well, I will say this, like if you draw a line on the state line, like I think everybody woke up this morning having definite feelings. As a Cubs fan, I'll tell you, I spent the last many years hating on Craig Counsell, and now I'm expected to love him. And I would say on the Brewers side of the fence, it's exactly the opposite. And as you know, because you come to the games with me, like we play the Brewers all the time, every year.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I was shocked. I mean, I knew Counsell was talking to the Mets and he was talking to the Guardians, but
Yeah.
to be a Wisconsin homegrown guy, played baseball at Whitefish Bay High School, and now he's going to the crosstown rivals. I mean, this adds a whole entirely new element to the Cubs Brewers rivalry. I mean, what do you think precipitated this move, especially on the Cubs end, Shane, when they had David Ross on board through next year?
Yeah, I mean Ross has been a great leader there, and I think that he was the right guy at the right moment in time. I think that, if you look at Craig Counsell and you look at David Ross, at least in my opinion, you've got two guys that are just masterful in the clubhouse, right? And that probably comes from having been players themselves, right? Like you can't teach that stuff. It is something that is learned and absorbed as a result of being a player and understanding what makes a player tick. Where they seem to differ a bit is Counsell is also a master tactician on the field. And I think with Ross, it's still a little bit of a work in progress. And if you look at this year, the Cubs weren't expected to go to the playoffs. They were expected to be around the 500 mark. They outperformed themselves for sure. But throughout the season, there was a lot of conversation, even with the armchair guys like myself, about questionable decision making on the field. And it wouldn't surprise me if it just got to the point where, Jed Hoyer was like, I got to at least consider this. And with Counsell coming on the market, it was an incredibly opportune time.
Yeah, I mean, and just even going back to last year, I mean, they spent $300 million on free agents. I mean, that has to be probably one of the biggest decision makers for Counsell. Is like he's basically has unlimited resources at his fingertips now for the Cubs to fill in whatever gaps they have. And he doesn't have to move very far, and boom, the Cubs are an instant competitor across the board for who knows how long.
Yeah, I mean, I keep my place up in the Milwaukee area, and I buy something down here, right? Like, and life goes on. What I really want to know is what that conversation in the room was like with Craig before they inked that deal. Because if you think about Counsell's history with the Brewers, he's been incredible at getting them to win the division and get them into the playoffs. Not so great as it relates to winning playoff games and getting that team all the way to the World Series. They've had some good runs, but, it's a sort of a Dodgers scenario, if you will. And I have to imagine that conversation must have come up on, what do you need from us as an organization so that not only can we win the division and get into the playoffs, but get ourselves to the World Series again.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it will be interesting to see what other moves may potentially come and what other dominoes fall across Major League Baseball from a managerial standpoint. But this is a huge one, right after the season ends. So,
yeah, a fascinating last 24 hours, and I'm as you say, this is probably just the beginning, and there's going to be a lot of dominoes that are falling all over the place. It'll be interesting to see where Ross lands, because he's going to land somewhere, and I'm sure that there's a lot of demand for a guy like that out there in the marketplace. So that'll be an interesting one to follow. But for now, Cubs fans and Brewers fans, y'all just woke up to a very different reality.